Bifocal Chapter 16. Haroon. I'm in charge of taping. It's the day before Eid, probably. There's always some discussion about when Ramadan actually ends and Eid begins, since it depends on the moon instead of the calendar, but it's likely going to be tomorrow. My family has spent the last day of Ramadan working at the food bank for as long as I can remember. This is the first time I've been assigned to the tape dispenser, the one that rolls the wide, clear tape across the open flaps of cardboard, binding them into a box and cutting off the edges neat and sharp. When I was a little kid, I'd watch the person with taping privileges out of the corner of my eye while I counted on the tins of tuna and beans. "Can I have a try?" I always asked, and was always told that I was too small and could hurt myself. I suspected that was a lie at the time. Now I finally get to tape. I'm both big enough and the only one yet on the task, and I know I was right. Making something solid out of what was moments before useless and flat is very satisfying. It's the mood I'm in, I think. The food bank is a productive place where things get done and something gets fixed. Food gets into empty bellies. How much simpler can it get? Xana is working as far away from me as she can get. She hasn't spoken to me in nearly a week. When she gets mad, she holds on to it. "Are you going to hog that thing all morning?" Julian asks. He's here with us, of course. He volunteers at a million things, but never seems rushed, never seems stressed. He's here because we're here. My family, I mean. He always celebrates Eid with us, just as I always celebrate Kwanzaa with him and his mom. "I'm not sure you should say the word hog to a Muslim," I answer. "I think that qualifies as an insult, which means I get to keep taping." You never know where Julian is going to go with something. To pretend to bug me, he goes into a long, fast lecture on pigs, specifically breeds of pigs, and how each new breed gets talked about in a different accent. "The Yorkshire pig is the aristocrat of hogs," he says in a fair imitation of Prince Charles. "It's the pig that ruled the British Empire." What? Then he switches to a drawl more Western than Westerners. "The dream of the Chester White is to end up on a Texas barbecue grill, feeding Republicans, making them grow up strong." "Where do you keep all that information in your dreadlocks?" I ask. He slips back into Jamaican. Something about wild pigs on the beach, trained to root out tourists who've been buried in the sand. "Tourist hunting pigs, the cool cousins of the truffle hunters of France." I'm laughing so hard that I loosen my grip on the taping machine, and Julian grabs his chance. "Never mind, little boy," he says. "There's always a chance next year." I'm demoted back to my usual job, packing empty boxes with cheap protein and budget-stretching noodles. I'm glad the food is all non-perishable, packaged up and scentless. There was one year when we volunteered at a hot lunch program at a drop-in center. A major restaurant had donated big trays of lasagna. It smelled so good, and I was so hungry from fasting that it was all I could do to keep myself from plunging my whole face into the fragrant noodles and sauce. There are many people from my mosque here today. We always have a Ramadan food drive, part of Zakat, or the Right of the Needy. Some people are packing up boxes of halal food to deliver to the new refugee families from Somalia and the Sudan who can't afford to celebrate Eid otherwise. Most of the food we collect goes to non-Muslim families. As our Imam says, hunger is hunger. My father is picking up his brother and a family from the airport. They're flying in from California to be with us for Eid. My cousin, Mohammed, is also a runner and gets along well with Julian. It's going to be a good Eid. My mother and sister are here. My mother is organizing a group of volunteers at the other end of the warehouse. I look across the warehouse and watch Xana pick up a filled box. She catches her abaya on something and trips, spilling the box. A can of pineapple chunks rolls its way over to me. I stop it with my foot and take it to her. "Are you all right?" I ask. "Now you want to know?" "I mean, did you hurt yourself when you tripped? Why does she have to be so touchy all the time?" "I've fallen before." She repacks the box, snatching the can of pineapple from my hand and tucking it next to the peanut butter. She goes to lift the box onto the table, ready for the final taping. "Let me help you with that," I say. "I'm stronger than you are," which is almost true. I watch her for a moment as she reaches for another empty box and begins putting groceries into it. "Why?" I ask her. The word comes out before I even realize I'm going to ask it. She stops packing. Her eyes, all I can see of her face, look at me over the black veil. "Why?" I ask again. "Just tell me. You found God, Are you doing it to annoy Mom? You're doing it on a dare or a bet. Whatever. Just tell me why. I'm ready to hear you now. Although I can't see the rest of her face, I can read her eyes. I never realized before how much you can read just in a person's eyes. Always before, I had the whole face to look at and interpret, but all I have now of my sister is her eyes, and I can tell she's trying to decide whether to bother telling me. Then she speaks. Ever since September 11th, before that, but especially then, people have hated us because we're Muslims. Don't interrupt me. I had no intention of interrupting. I'm too happy to have her actually talking with me. She continues. They hate our names, they hate our traditions, and they think we're all mindless terrorists who want to strap dynamite to our chests and go blow up Toys R Us. They don't see us as people. She pauses. I take a chance on speaking, hoping that she doesn't think I'm interrupting. But if we continue to look and behave so differently from most people, I say, they'll never trust us. Xana sits down on a crate of kidney beans. I give her a moment to work out what she's trying to say. Not all of us can do that, she tells me. How we dress is so much part of who we are. Some women believe it is their duty to God to be fully covered. Some have only been in this country a short while, and they have worn the veil in their home countries all their lives. When they must get used to so many new things already, do we really need to add clothes to that? But people think I made you wear this, I say. They think Dad and I are oppressing you. It's fine if you believe in it, or if you're used to it, but that's not you. Why do you have to wear it? She stands up and goes back to work, dismissing me. It's called solidarity, Haroon. Look it up sometime. I leave her alone. Xana. I'd resent her if I didn't love her so much. All I can do is be proud of her, even when I don't understand her, even when she drives me up the wall. How's the packing going? Dad asks. Dad, you're here early. The plan was for him to meet us here in a couple of hours, with Uncle Asif and family in tow. We are going to go out for dinner at the Khyber Pass Afghan restaurant. Mom made a reservation. Where is everybody? Was their plane early? Where's your mother? Dad asks in return, which is not a good sign. Bad news gets broken first to Mom, then to us. I nod towards the sorting department at the other end of the warehouse. He heads that way. Xana, Julian, and I go after him. Julian leaves the tape machine behind. I don't know why I care enough to even notice that, when something more important is going on. What is it? Mom asks, seeing Dad's face and stepping her way through a maze of food donations. They weren't allowed on the plane, my father says. They had their tickets, their identification, everything was in order. But my brother's name came up on the no-fly list. What's that? I ask, although I feel that I should already know. It's a list of people that the government thinks might be terrorists, one of the sorting volunteers says. It's a list of people the government says it doesn't trust to get on a plane. Uncle Asif? I ask. That doesn't make sense. Uncle Asif was born in Sacramento. He owns a string of car dealerships. He sells Fords. It's a ridiculous thing to say, but no one says so or rolls their eyes. The whole situation is ridiculous. They've got him mixed up with someone else, my mother says in that matter-of-fact voice of hers that says this is simply a mess that will be straightened out. They've got him confused with another man of the same name. So someone else should be kept from flying so that your relative can be kept in his place? The volunteer asked. Your brother's right to fly is more important than this other person's? They've made a mistake, my mother says firmly. You think these groceries are going to sort themselves? She moves my family and Julian over to an empty space away from prying ears. I will call someone. Who? My father asks. In time for Eid? Who can be called? I don't know, my mother tells him. I'll call someone. My mother is a scientist. She refuses to believe that there is such thing as a problem that has no solution. My father deals with literature. He knows better. She hustles us back to work. Julian doesn't even try for the tape machine again. He stays close to me and Xana. We all pack side by side. There was a blacklist in the 1950s, he says. This time there is no funny accent. Your name went on it if somebody said you were a communist. Sometimes the committee would make a mistake, put the wrong name on the list, and the poor sap would go to them and say, "You've got the wrong person." And the committee would say, "Prove you're not a communist by giving us the names of other communists." This guy would say, "But I don't know any communists." And the committee would say, "If you won't cooperate with us, you must be a communist." I reached for a can of lentils and wished Julian would go back to talking about pigs. The next day I go to the mosque with my family to celebrate Eid with prayers in our community. Our Imam talks about how the faith can be a source of comfort in times of trouble, a pathway to the past and the future. I keep that in mind as I pray beside my father, saying words that have been said for centuries by people all over the world. I feel my mind touching all of those lives, imagining their struggles, their triumphs, and then imagining that hundreds of years from now, someone will be thinking back to me. For all the things that tear us apart, our human failures of injustice and greed, we are united in the prayers we say and our search for comfort in the endless universe. I'm feeling calmer than I have in a while as I put on my shoes after this service and walk out into the sunshine with my family. There are always problems, I say, walking with them towards the parking lot. When we're in them, they seem really important, but as time goes on, they're just blips. The things that last are not the things we worry about. My mother puts her arm around my waist. She used to be able to put it around my shoulders, but I've grown so much. We make slow progress. Many people have come to the mosque today. There are lots of friends to exchange greeting with. Even people we don't know wish us happy Eid, and we return the wishes. The world and the ugliness it has recently brought into our small piece of it seems far away. The peace of prayers have even put at bay the thoughts of our relatives who were wrongly kept from joining us. I love my family, I love my community, and I just feel good. Of course, it doesn't last. There are groups of people in the parking lot huddled over copies of a newspaper. We are drawn to them by the energy of anger, outrage, and betrayal that hovers over them. What have we become? An old man asked. How can we stand together when there are those among us who want to rip us apart? What do you expect? There are always people who cause trouble for everyone, a younger man says. Cause trouble or prevent trouble, another man asks. May we see the newspaper? My father asks. What's going on? The newspaper is passed over to him. I lean in to read with the rest of my family. There's a big photograph on the top of the front page of the city paper. I recognize the face of a man. I don't know him personally, but he's been a part of our mosque ever since I can remember. He's even led a youth group. I wasn't part of it, but I knew about it. The headline is big too. Mole in mosques roots out terrorists. The peace of the prayers slip away. He worked with the police. He informed on his brothers. He averted a disaster. He did us all a favor. The opinions swirl around us. I find myself looking at their faces. Some of them I know since I was a small boy. Could one of these not be who he seems? Could one of these be gathering information on the rest of us, reporting to the police the things that they hear and see that seem different or suspicious, just like Detective Moffat asked me to do? And what is suspicious anyways? We are Muslims, but we are also citizens, someone says. We have an obligation to our country to inform the police of terrorists. This man is a hero. He'd look more like a hero if he hadn't taken their money, Xana says. She's a fast reader and points to something at the tail end of the article. The police paid him. Anyone can be a hero for $50,000. The paper is taken back from my father, and the small print at the end of the article is studied. Maybe he's planning to donate the money to a charity, I hear one of them say. My father steers us towards our car. 30 pieces of silver, I think. My comparative religions class is coming in handy.